How is everybody doing today? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, I wanted to take a look at an article from CNBC.com, which basically looks at this individual who started a business, but found out, starting a business is not always what it's cracked up to be. It's not always what it's hyped to be. I think I found this article very interesting. I thought it was a good example of what could kind of go wrong unexpectedly, even though your business may be doing well. It's kind of the effect that owning and operating a business can have on your life and your family life, which I think is a very a very interesting aspect to the whole equation of owning a small business. But I had some other episodes that came out this week. If anybody gets a chance to go check out the kind of the conversation that I had with Alex Blumstrom from Alex Blum Creates on, the whole TikTok situation, but she's a very young business owner and kind of going through some of these issues herself. I also have conversations with Alan Berkeley where we discuss the failure in Kansas. And again, that's a situation of, again, a very small bank in a local neighborhood that basically goes under. And what are the ramifications of that on the local community, on the individuals that work at the bank, on the shareholders, the board of directors, just all the stakeholders involved. So it's kind of a, not quite a theme, but just an analysis, if you will, of a lot of different situations that can happen in the world of business, so to speak, when you're running and operating different businesses, and ramifications of when things quite don't go how you expect them to. So, but anyway. So this article from CNBC.com, this is titled 41-year-old's business brought in $1 million in his first year, which is great. I mean, anybody who knows, you start up a business, I would say 99% of most small businesses do not make $1 million in their first year. Then he quit to take a 9-to-5 job instead. I wonder why he did that. We'll find out. So when Carlos Gil opened the hype section alongside his brother-in-law in 2022, he was ready for entrepreneurship's promise of financial freedom. Gil, a social media marketer, got a taste of the high-paid, flexible schedule life in 2019 when he published a book called The End of Marketing, and the ensuing book tour earned him six figures, he says. After dabbling in selling face masks during the COVID-19 pandemic, the hype section, a store dedicated to the hype culture around shoes, clothes, and collectibles at Jacksonville, Florida, was his next step. He and his brother-in-law spent $30,000 in savings to launch the hype section, which brought in more than $1 million in sales in its first year of business, says Gil, who's 41. The store built a community of supporters, from local high school students to professional athletes like NFL wide receivers Christian Kirk and MLB outfielder Aaron Hicks, he says. Running the business was all good vibes at first. Hip-hop music blared, ESPN was plastered on TVs, and Gil enjoyed interacting with customers, but the feeling was short-lived. The resale business's 10% to 15% profit margins were barely enough to cover operational costs, he says. And as hype culture cooled down, so did the hype section's growth. As consumer spending and demand declined, his 12-hour workdays took a toll. My marriage is taking a hit. My family doesn't see me. I get home and I'm exhausted working less than minimum wage, Gil recently told LinkedIn's Catalyst video series. I'm no longer on the road speaking at conferences or earning a six-figure salary. Entrepreneurship was starting to feel more like a trap and less like freedom. Still, he was proud of his entrepreneur title and reputation. He didn't want to seek a traditional job until a tearful conversation with his wife forced him to let go of his pride, he says. I realized I can't do this anymore, Gil told LinkedIn. I need to do what's right for my family, working in a corporate job. Entrepreneurship is not for me, and that's okay. Gil joined marketing software company GetResponse as a brand evangelist in April of 2024, helping establish the company's content and digital marketing strategy. The hype section closed its doors 3 months later. When Gil decided to rejoin the corporate world, he worried about his ego and feelings of shame. He says, there are people who have come back to me and called me and my business partner a failure. But his 9-to-5 job gives him a steady income, healthcare benefits, and the ability to spend more time with his family. Gil says he's not necessarily swearing off entrepreneurship forever, but he's happier and more motivated now than he was as a store owner. I realize now in my 40s that what you do 9 to 5, that's what pays the bills. But what you do from 5 to 9, That's really what matters, Gil says. It's family and spending time with the people you love. If if you're navigating a similar career chart, look for opportunities to upskill and build up your network. HR consultant Stephanie Fackrell told CNBC last month. Okay, yeah, well, we get that. If the business is taking away from the things that really make you live a happy life, such as your family and your hobbies, or the things that you're really passionate about, then you should really look in the mirror and think, does that business serve you? He said, if it's okay if entrepreneurship doesn't work out, it's okay to pivot. And I agree with that sentiment 100%. And there's a lot of things to examine there. And I think that, you could get into this whole discussion in a very real way. Like, in other words, a lot of people start businesses, particularly small businesses, and they think kind of like how this gentleman was thinking, like, oh, this is the road to financial freedom. I'm going to be totally in control of my time. I'm going to have more time, more money, more flexibility in my life and everything. And 99.5% of the time, like, that's not true. Like, that's just not true. Like, when you run your own business, you have a lot that you have to do that, like, in other words, you might be there 9 to 5, just running like, say you open a retail store, you might be there 9 to 5, just running the store. But then you got another 8 hours that you're going to be there, doing all the HR stuff, paying all the bills, doing the QuickBooks. If you got to get in inventory, you got to, make phone calls, make sure that you got the orders in for the things that you need, make sure that stuff's arriving on time. Then you got just, cleaning, maintenance of the store. Did you hire a company to come in? Is the store clean? Does it look good? Is it ready to go for opening the next day? There's so much more that goes into it, and you as the business owner, that all the responsibility that's on you. And if you don't do those things, you don't keep the image of the business up, you don't pay the bills, you don't pay your employees, your business is not going to operate for very long. And then the real kick in the gut at the end of the day is you could do all those things great. You could be working 12-hour, 14, 15, 16-hour days every day and making the business roll. And like you said, you might be making a few $1 million a year in revenue. But if the profit margin is not there, you could be doing all that work and making less money than, like you said, if you just took a 9 to 5 job. And so that's what one of the conversations I've always had with either existing business owners or, people who are looking to start a business is, what are your expectations here? What do you think you're really going to get out of this versus the actual reality of the situation? And you see this in certain industries more than others. Like again, you kind of have what I call, bars, bed and breakfast, retail, restaurants, pizza shops, pizza places. A lot of people, sometimes they get into these businesses because they had family members who were in the business, or maybe they bought a business from a family member or something like that. Other people get into some of these businesses just because they kind of fall in love with the idea of being, not the business itself, but the idea of being, like, in other words, I can't tell you how many people I've met over the years that, wanted to open a bar and they thought it was going to be like Cheers. If everybody remembers the show Cheers. But I would tell people all the time, like, listen, you're not Sam Malone, and that's not Norm sitting there at the end of the bar. It's the reality of that business is something that is very different from from the TV show. And so I think, you have to think about this before you get into a business. You have to think about the scalability of, what's that business's ability to scale. Can I turn, if I want to, can I turn this into a bigger business? Can I turn this into a 25, a 50, $100 million a year business? Is that a possibility? Or is this just a simple business that's only designed to make, some businesses, the way that they're made, they're only designed to make, somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million a year and provide you with maybe a $75,000 to $100,000 a year income. That's just all the business is. That's just all it's designed to be. And some people are fine with that. Some people are fine with that. But I think you also have to judge that versus, if I own a business and I've got 6 employees and I'm working, 13 hours a day, and and I'm making $80,000 a year. Well, does it make more sense to take that 9 to 5 job, where I could take a 9 to 5 job, make 150,000 a year, not have any employees, not have any of that headache, and at the end of the day, I could go home and spend time with my family. So you have to really think deeply about these things, and you really have to judge them. Before you go out and jump into the small business lifestyle. You have to really think deeply about this stuff. What are some things you do in life just because you love doing it. Some things are just passion, and that's fine, and that's great. But for a lot of people, if you're just trying to make money and you're trying to maximize your time and your effort and your money, like, you have to think very deeply about what's going on here. And I would remind people, 90% of all small businesses fail within the first 2 years of operation. Then, if you're lucky, if you're in that 10% that makes it through the first 2 years, then 90% of those businesses fail within the first 7 years. So if you make it to 7 years in business, you've actually done something quite extraordinary. You are the 1%. It's in a very weird way. It's kind of like a professional athlete, like making it to the NFL. You start out with 3 million high school kids playing football, and then it goes to 30,000 college kids, and then about 3,000 players in the NFL. So 1% of kids in high school are going to make it to the NFL. Those are the statistics. 1%, less than 1%, slightly less than 1%. And it's kind of like the same thing with business owners. Like, when you start a business and you become an entrepreneur, less than 1% of those companies are going to be around. And so, if you started 100,000 companies in 7 years, less than 1% of them are still going to be in existence. Those are the numbers. That's the reality. And so, again, I thought this was a great article today, just basically showing some of the pitfalls there with small business, about how even if your business starts off great, even if you are experiencing some success, it may not be the type of success that you truly want or truly envision for yourself at the end of the day. And this gentleman made the decision that, hey, you know what, being an entrepreneur in this type of business wasn't the best thing for me. Going to work for a nice company and a nice 9 to 5 job, that works. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it works for you and enables you to, have the family time you need and be around loved ones and pursue other hobbies and interests, like, then that's perfect. And that's all you need in life. That's all you need in life. You don't need to be Elon Musk, so to speak. So, and in another episode, in a future episode, I'm going to talk about the price. If you want to do something, if you want to accomplish something in life, there's always a price to be paid for that. And that's not my rule. That's the rules of the universe, the rules of the world. Anything, I believe that anything truly worth accomplishing in life, you have to pay a price in order to accomplish it. And the question is always, are you willing to make that sacrifice? Are you willing to pay that price to get to where you want to be or accomplish the goal that you want at the end of the day? And like I said, I'll talk about that in a future episode. But if you like this episode today, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always enjoy getting back to everybody. And remember to check out some of the other content on the channel. And I will see everybody again real soon. Thanks a lot.